There's so much stuff out there that's like telling women, like, here's how you should be.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah and I am a co-active life coach as well as the host for MindPod. This is a place where I will be inviting interesting human beings to explore an idea. There is no right, no wrong, just browsing. So let's see what we can stir up. Our guest today is Athena Dutis, who is my sister-in-law. She grew up in Dubai, got her bachelor's and master's degree in New York City, and she's back here in Dubai to work. However, after 4 years, she left the corporate world to follow her passion and become a makeup artist. Now she works with private clients and on photo shoots with magazines and luxury brands. So let's invite her in. Hi, Athena.
Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. And you?
Good.
So today with Athena, we're going to be covering what it means to be a woman in 2020 for career and society. So we're going to start with career. What do you think is women's focus today when choosing a career? And how is it different from before?
This is a question that everyone gets. Like, what are you looking for? Trying to get paid for my skills. No matter if you're in a corporate world or freelancing, like, get money, get paid. That's most people's goals. And then, there's like secondary goals, like if you want flexibility or you're trying to do something that's your passion. But no matter what you're doing, you want money, respect, and stability to some extent.
So what's the difference you've seen between how people treat women and men?
It's harder to be taken seriously as a woman. For example, like when we go to a job interview, there's so many factors that we have to think about other than my resume and my experience. Are these shoes going to be too sexy? Are they, not fancy enough for my workplace? There's been a dress code for women in the workplace for decades, whether it's spoken or unspoken. In a lot of meetings, for example, women are interrupted frequently.
Yeah. And how is it different from before when you compare the kind of like treatment or environment or opportunities that women can get?
Well, I mean, back in the day, like women were seen as, oh, you're a secretary, or women are supposed to be in the house and not in the workplace. We have so many more options now. So I'm not saying like we're still in the 50s. You get, so much sexual harassment of women in the workplace because of, these ingrained ideas that women are sexual objects and they're inviting you on like their unspoken invitations that they're giving you, even if there's, no intent behind it. It's behavior that a lot of men don't even realize is problematic until you point it out and you try to draw that boundary. And then they're either like, what a crazy bitch, or they're like, oh, maybe she has a point. I definitely think that now men are more open to their behaviors being pointed out to them. But, older generation might be like, oh, I'm too old. I can't change my behavior. Or like, oh, it doesn't even compute as something that they need to change. They're just like, it's always been like this. Why are you acting like this? Well, it shouldn't have always been like that in the first place. So, it's good that things are changing slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Finally.
So do you think there's an expectation from an employee or a stakeholder just because you're a woman?
A lot of places, for example, expect you to wear heels all the time, even though it's uncomfortable. Or, you can't assert yourself as much as a man would because it's perceived differently. Like if a man says something, oh, he's dynamic and, powerful and innovative. And then when women say something, they're like, okay, calm down, don't rock the boat, this kind of thing. And I haven't personally experienced this in the workplace, but I feel like, well, actually I have, that women are supposed to do a lot of the emotional work and the, not admin, but like the housekeeping in the office.
Yeah. So I've also noticed something about that in the office. When we celebrate someone's birthday and we get birthday cakes and plates and cups and all this stuff, it's usually a couple of women taking care of making sure everything is in place, even slicing the cake.
No, 100%. I mean, it's in my last corporate job, that was definitely the case, you know. It definitely was mostly women organizing these things. Like, I don't really remember any man taking the initiative unless it was like to suggest like, oh, it's XYZ's birthday. Like, should someone take care of it?
And what are the struggles that you faced when you were looking for a job?
I feel like when a woman is interviewing for a job, any hesitation is seen as weakness in a way. They might think, you know, oh, are you married? Are you planning to have kids? Like that. They might take that into account because they're like, oh, you know, we're going to have to pay more insurance or give more time off, etc. Like, this is a huge thing. Like, when a man has a kid, they're like, oh, give him a promotion. He needs more money to raise his family. When a woman has a kid, it's seen like as a weakness. So, you know, they take these kind of things into account. You know, society wants women to have children to continue the society or whatever. And then as soon as it happens, you're like, oh, you're like no longer qualified to work in a workplace, or, you know, no one's willing to make allowances for it, but everyone must have a kid and everyone must fulfill their biological reproduction destiny.
So, do you think maybe the system that we have is flawed at the moment?
100%. If men also had leave for having a kid, then it wouldn't just be, oh, it's a problem with women. It's not a problem with women. This is like what women do.
Right. So, on a bigger picture, when we speak about society, how does the previous generations perceive today's women to be?
I feel like the modern woman is a lot more outspoken and confident than previous generations. I mean, we have more options in terms of like doing what we want in life. So we don't have to follow these like rigid traditions or care so much about our societal reputation as previous generations. Like, you know, if I'm friends with guys and my mom or my grandma is like, why are you friends with so many guys? I'm like, well, because we're human and we're friends. Like, it doesn't mean I'm sleeping with them, which is what you're clearly implying. And there's also this kind of the concept of fuck you money, which is like, you know, women are more able to gain independence now. So they don't really need to please their parents or the older people in their life, because like we're not relying on them for support anymore. Or, well, that might be changing now because of the whole economy and blah, blah, blah. But in broad terms, there's more of like, you know, she's doing what she wants. So, you know, some people admire that and they support that. And other people are like, oh, you know, the generations have been ruined and women are shameful and all this kind of stuff, because we're kind of a lot more in touch with what we want in life, whether it's from work or relationships or boundaries or what have you, and a lot more willing to go after it no matter what other people say. Like, this is a huge difference, is like the importance of reputation or what are people going to say is like much more diminished. So because we care less, they might think, oh, they just leaving tradition behind, but that's not always the case.
Right. And I've also heard people say that we are very spoiled. We don't know how to appreciate what we have. Yeah.
I don't think that's true in most people's case. Like, obviously, look, there's people who are spoiled. Like, there's even people that I look at them that are younger than me and I'm like, you spoiled brat. But I mean, overall, like, I feel like a lot of our generation, especially women, have worked really hard for what they have and continue to do so. So, you know, what's spoiled? Because I want to go get a manicure once a week. I work hard for that money and that's my priority. Like, should I be suffering? There's this kind of like old idea that if you're working, you're just, you know, not really enjoying your life. But I think now we have more the idea that, you know, I want to enjoy what I'm doing and I want to enjoy my free time. And, you know, I want to take care of myself more. And celebrate myself. Like, it's, I mean, I've heard that too, that we're like the selfish generation because we do self-care and all this kind of thing. Well, first of all, it's part of mental health. Like, nobody wants to be a drone. And just because, you know, back in the day, that was the normal thing. Well, guess what? It's not normal for me to graduate college and have a job paying me, you know, $10,000 a month. So I'm slaving away, earning the money. Like, jobs pay way less now. So you got to find the joy in little things. I mean, I didn't have amazing job offers when I left college, and I went to a really good school and I got really good grades. And, society tells you, you go to school and then you get a good job, and then your good job leads to you getting a family and a house and a car and da da da. None of that happened for me. I mean, I graduated during like the biggest crisis of our generation. Well, economic. And, you hear people being like, oh, if you just saved up instead of eating avocado toast, you'd be able to buy a house. I can't afford a house, bitch. People be trying to pay me $32,000 a year, and a house cost $5 million that you got for $100,000 50 years ago. So, it's a totally different perception of priorities.
I feel like personally, women are a lot more careful with who they settle with, how to spend their money. I think they do think about future, like a very far future. So there's a lot of cautiousness in women, mentally, emotionally, financially. Do you think that's a good thing?
I definitely think it's a good thing because, like I said, our grandmothers or some of our mothers didn't have those options. So what did they do? They got married young. They had a couple of kids, and they rely on their husband to bring home the money and to raise them. There's so many cases you can point to where, a woman, got married right out of college or right out of high school, didn't have a career, didn't have a job, was a housewife. And then, 20, 25 years later, the husband divorces them for whatever reason, or he's cheating on them. And either they are, left alone with no way to support themselves, or they stay in a miserable marriage because they don't have options. So of course we're going to be more careful, with who we choose to marry, because there are so many options out there. Because now that women have success, again, it's the fuck you money. I don't need a man to financially support me because I can support myself. So I'm less willing to put up with the kind of shit that a previous generation might have put up with, because they're like, well, what am I going to do if he divorces me? Or I can't leave. Like, how am I going to raise my kids? Or how am I going to rent an apartment, or whatever it is? There's less dependence on the money of men. So, of course, we're going to be more choosy about who we're with and more careful about financial decisions.
And how does that impact men, in your opinion, when women have the option to walk away?
I think it makes them insecure, to be honest. They're not used to that, or it's not something that they're trained for in today's society. Like, more and more, I think they understand that, like younger and younger generations. But, people even our age, they feel like they're entitled to women's adulation or women's servitude or subservience because, I bring home the money. So, I deserve to be able to do whatever I want, and you just shut up and take it and go make me a sandwich. And it's like, really, it's the whole thing of like toxic masculinity, right? Like, if a woman asserts herself, it minimizes you as a man, which is not the case. I mean, obviously there's women who are abusive, egomaniacs, whatever it is. But by and large, women are just trying to, again, create boundaries in their relationships, get what they want out of the relationship. There's a lot of emotionally bankrupt men out there. Again, it's a correction of wrong behaviors that were in place in the first place. Like, it should never have been like that, but because it was like that, somebody got to pay for it. And sorry, buddy, it's you. Sorry, not sorry, actually.
Yeah. And what are the most asked questions by today's society because you're a woman?
When are you going to get married? Are you seeing anyone? Like, every time before I met Wayne, every time I'd go to Greece, like, oh, are you with anyone? What's happening? How come you're still single? Shall I set you up with someone? Like, I feel like a lot of the questions that women have to do with this like family life. I mean, I wasn't being asked like, how's work? Have you been promoted? Like, what are you doing at work? Like, no one asked me what I'm doing at the office. And as soon as you get married, when's the kid? And if you have a kid, when's the next one? Like, there's never a time for you to kind of enjoy where you are. It's always looking forward and the next and the next and the next. But, like when men are hanging out or, they go back to the village, they're like, how's work? Have you been promoted? All exciting stuff. Not like, when are you going to start using your uterus?
What else are you asked frequently apart from marriage?
Like now that I'm freelancing, I get asked a lot like, oh, will you do my makeup? And I'm like, sure, it's a service I offer. When it's like someone that I hardly know and they're like, oh, will you do my makeup? And I'm like, if you pay me, I would love to. That's literally my job.
There are jobs now that are not yet valued as much as other business out there. And do you feel like the makeup industry falls under something that's not valued enough?
Beauty related businesses are not taken seriously by people or by government. As a makeup artist, when I am approached by a potential client, a lot of times they're like surprised that I require payment for my services, or they try to get me to like, oh, do the shoot for us and we'll give you credit in our restaurant, or, oh, you're freelancer, so can you give us a discount? You don't go to a hotel and like try to negotiate the price. I'm using my makeup. Can you do it cheaper? No. If you bring a towel to a hotel, are they going to give you a discount because you brought your own towel? No. They don't understand what they're paying for. When I come to do your makeup, you're not paying me for, the tiny bit of lipstick I used or the foundation that I bought. That's part of it because I do have expenses of products. You're paying for my time. Like when you're in a job where you're kind of working for yourself, you're like, is it worth it for me to leave my house during a pandemic for 200 dirhams? I don't think so. Or, am I willing to do XYZ job in exchange for restaurant vouchers during a pandemic? No, I'm not.
So, what do women need more in terms of mental health?
Right now, women's mental health is really impacted by the way that they are valued in society and the way that they're treated. Because women are relatively young in the workforce compared to men, they obviously don't have the long-term advantages that men have had in the workplace. So that can affect you too. I mean, if you're working your ass off in an office and people are just like, okay, cool. And then, someone that's doing a man that's doing a bare minimum is getting promoted and promoted and promoted. You're like, what is this? And, women are also trained in the older generations that other women are their competition. Like it's a resource scarcity, whether it's for jobs or for men. And you have to fight each other to get places instead of saying, like men are always encouraged, like, oh, your fraternity brother, or go networking or this or that, like help each other out. They like help each other climb the ladder. Whereas women are conditioned to kind of think of like other women are the enemy. If a man likes her, he can never like me. And that's a man I've lost. So like we have to fight over him. I'm not trying to fight for anyone's affection. You don't like me? Cool, peace out. But that's not how women have been socialized. Like we have to kind of earn respect. We have to earn everything. And then it just seems like men are kind of like, oh, you got to that stage, we'll just take you to the next stage. Like it's a natural progression for them versus women having to like work for it. And so obviously this affects women's mental health. Like they're forced to like change their behavior or change their personality or, keep it inside. Like they're afraid to speak up at work. I mean, how many women have been assaulted in the workplace and they're like afraid to say something about it and they can't quit their job? It's not a culture of support for women that we've had till now. And, obviously it's slowly changing and that kind of thing. But it's just tough because not only are like men your adversary, but also you're trained to see other women as your adversary in a way.
Yeah. So, what does that do to women?
Well, first, it's infuriating when you think about it. And frankly, it's depressing. I mean, it's insane how all these small things that we've been trained to think about stop us from achieving our full potential in so many situations. Like, I mean, who hasn't gone on a date with an average guy and been like, is he gonna like me? And not once think, do I like this guy? It's like, oh, he's interested. Like, I must make myself into what he wants, or like convince him to like me. Who hasn't been in that situation? I know in, my early 20s, I was there quite often because I was socialized by society to think that I have to convince a guy to like me because, I have a big personality and, strong opinions. And
Yeah, so the attitude is not that I decide whether I like this or not, but I need to become what's likable.
100%. And this is both in relationships and in the workplace. I mean, who hasn't been at work and just wanted to like shout at someone or like tell them to be quiet or whatever? They're like talking over you, or like, they dominate the conversation and then you can't even get a word in edgewise, or they're taken more seriously than you because of the fact that they're a man. And you know what? The crazy thing is that like a lot of times people don't even understand that they're doing that because it's so ingrained. Like, I wouldn't, and it's something that I do as well sometimes. It's not that I wouldn't trust like a woman doctor over a man doctor, but sometimes you're like, yeah, this guy's talking about cars. He definitely knows what he's talking about. He could be talking out of his ass. Like, this is the thing, because men are trained throughout growing up that like, you're strong and you can do whatever you want and be confident and, you deserve everything. And then women are trained to kind of, we have to convince, like, don't be too loud. Don't swear. Women are questioned all the time on shit that men are like, oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about.
How can we be better? Or how can we take care of mental health in a better way?
Well, I think a big part of that is kind of knowing who you are and knowing what you want and like not listening to all the noise. Even today, social media and family members and magazines and TV are all saying like, women should be this way, XYZ, There's so much stuff out there that's like telling women, like, here's how you should be. I mean, it's hard when you have all this against you. Like, social media now is a minefield. You had like 16-year-olds wanting to get lip injections because that's what's sexy. But like 16, you're not even fully developed. You might not want to look like that in 5 years.
Sometimes it's not even about being sexy. It's just trending.
100%. For me, one of the most important things that I did, especially during quarantine, was that I really took a hard look at the social media that I follow, the shows that I watch, the content I consume online. Like, what am I reading? What am I looking at?
I love that. So you're kind of evaluating the information you're feeding yourself.
Yeah, because when you see something constantly, it becomes, that's normal. So like if I used to have so many like fitness accounts on my Instagram and I would like look at it and be like, oh yeah, someday I'm going to do that. The danger of social media is that you don't see the struggle. You just see the result. You see someone that, has a 6-pack and they're lifting heavy. And this goes for men as well. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on men to look a certain way as well. Definitely not as much as women. For me, one of the number one things women can do for their own mental health is to make sure that they're consuming content that makes them feel good.
So how much of tradition should women honor in 2020?
I feel like you should honor what works for you. Like, our grandmothers and our mothers are speaking from different times and different experiences. My mom was always afraid that I would never meet anyone because I curse and because I talk loud and I laugh loud. I have a big personality. When, I met Wayne, who's literally me, but in a dude's body. So she's like, oh, now there's 2 of them. So they're saying it because they care about you, because they had XYZ experience. But if it doesn't really apply to today, I don't know why you would listen to it. And I mean, there's times that my grandmother or my mother or an aunt give me constantly the same advice. And I'm like, you've said it. I don't need to keep hearing it, because if I haven't implemented it, there's a reason. And the reason is XYZ, or the reason's none of your business. I feel like sometimes people try to wear you down with like, this is how it was when I grew up and da da da. And okay, cool. I'm happy to hear about your experience, but I'm experiencing something totally different than anything that you could experience. I mean, my grandma didn't even finish third grade. So what are you trying to tell me about like high school boyfriends or whatever? Like, you have no idea what is happening right now. And just like, when God willing, if I have kids, I would say, when I was a kid, it was like XYZ, but you have to kind of be able to process that what you're saying might not be valid right now, but also be able to process that like the person saying that to you is saying it out of love. Cool. But then also be able to draw a boundary and be like, okay, cool. You've said what you want to say. I'm hearing it. I'm processing it, but I don't need to do everything you told me to do. I do think there's value in tradition when it's not being forced on you. Like, does my mom want me to have a church wedding? Yeah. But if I didn't want one, I would not be having one. Trust and believe. I like these traditions that is like for community. I see food the same way. So as long as you don't feel like you're being forced into something, I feel like there's value there, or that you're forcing someone else into something. You got to have your own autonomy. If people like it, they like it. And if they don't, they don't. But there's no reason for you to push your values or push your traditions on other people.
I know you're very big on feminism, women's rights, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, and me too. And I feel like, we've been fighting for it. Thanks to the women in the past, we are having it a lot easier than they have had in the past.
100%.
Yeah. And I'm also realizing that the more we ask for equality, the more we also increase responsibility as a woman. Because we're kind of standing in front of the lane saying, we want to do this. We want to have the right to be able to work, to do this, to do that, to get involved, all this stuff. And when you do get involved, when you stand in the front line, you do have a certain responsibility. However, I am also noticing that there are a lot of women who ask for the right, and it's for their convenience, So they would only fight for the right when it's convenient to them. And once it's not convenient to them, they go like, no, but that's a man's job. So what do you think of that?
It's hard because there's like a clash of old and new values, right? Like for me, for example, it's shitty when a woman is like, oh, women's equality, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, but I'm, pro-life. I'm against abortion. Well, then you're not for women's equality, because no one questions a man's right to take Viagra or to impregnate women or this or that. But women's health is, under siege right now around the world. And so for you to say that you are a feminist, but you're pro-life, look, we're all pro-life. I'm not saying abortion's amazing, but I support a woman's right to choose that.
Yeah. No one enjoys going for an abortion.
I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy to believe that women are like, I'm not going to wear a condom. I'll just get an abortion. Like, it's a horrible decision to have to make. I don't judge anyone for making it because, they have valid reasons. Maybe they can't afford to have a kid right now. Maybe their husband's abusive and they're trying to get out of their marriage. Maybe, they want to focus on their career. These are all valid reasons. And also, it's none of your fucking business. None of your business. Am I trying to take a child out of your uterus? No, then you don't have a say. Because my body, my choice. 100,000 million %. Like, there's no reason why anyone should be in your business about that. Like, that infuriates me.
Yeah. And now I'm curious if, let's say, women are doing abortion, and collectively, when you look at it, the number or the cases are a lot, right? But then when you look at it individually, how many times can a woman go through abortion? I personally don't know anyone who's gone through it more than once, because it's not easy on them. And if you do know someone who has done it 6 or 8 times, that lady has issues. She needs help.
Well, I mean, think about, why is this woman having so many abortions? A lot of people don't have an abortion in order to never have kids again. They have an abortion because they can't have the kid now. Every woman that I know that has done it was like, it's not a choice that I ever wanted myself to have to make, but it's the choice that was right for me right now. I mean, you have women being raped by their relatives that need to do it. You have women being raped by their husbands that are like, if I have a kid, I'm never going to be able to leave. So they have to do it. There's women that, don't have access to birth control because it's so expensive in some countries. I mean, the barriers are huge in some places for that. And there's no way that it's a pleasant procedure. Honestly, like, what's easier, not getting pregnant or having an abortion? But what's harder than having an abortion is like carrying a child for 9+ months that you don't want, or you can't afford, or you can't protect. Like, it's horrible. It's a hard decision. And it shouldn't be made by anyone except the woman experiencing it. Like, I would never tell someone, have your kid, even if you don't want it.
Or the other way, go do abortion.
No, dude, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body. Like, you know that it's an option. So are all pro-choice women pro-abortion? Not necessarily. We're pro-choice. There's a difference.
So I'm going to go back a little bit, juggling all these things that we did ask for, and now we do have the choice that we can make. How much responsibility are we trying to carry on our shoulders? How much can we do, actually?
Yeah, we wanted the right to get into the workplace, but that doesn't mean that we also believe it's right for us to have a full-time job and then go home and be full-time caregivers. Just because a woman says, I want to be able to have kids and a job, isn't like, okay, well, you take the responsibility for all of that. It has to become a thing where like men are also expected to help in those situations.
So what I'm hearing is that we need to be able to communicate and share the responsibilities if we do start living together. So that's in a relationship, right? But like, I feel like some girls are picking the rights or the freedom of choice we have at their convenience.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's happening, listen, men have been doing that for centuries, so I don't see what the problem is, to be honest. Men have been getting away with a lot for a long time and making excuses for that. And now women are like, well, we want equality, which means that we should also get away with stuff. Like, why not? It doesn't mean, she's not better than him in any way. Like, they're the same. But women will be treated much worse for doing that.
What I think of when I see people utilizing things based on their convenience, that passes on to the next society. The younger generation is always watching the older generation learning those skills, right? So that's where I have a problem personally, where I see people picking and choosing, and usually it's at their convenience and not taking ownership of their responsibility.
There's always going to be people taking advantage of every situation. Am I saying that every woman that says she's a feminist is a feminist? No, because there's many definitions of feminism. There's many definitions of equality. For me, if a woman's making less money than a man, then he should contribute more, but not because he's a man, but because he's making more money. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, in a lot of divorces now, when, the woman is the breadwinner, she has to pay alimony. Not he has to pay her because she's a woman and he's a man. It's because of financial reasons, not because of gender. So, women also lose some things out when we demand equality. Like, yeah, you're going to have to pay for dinner sometimes, or you're going to have to pay your husband alimony if you make more money than him. What are you going to do? Like, when you talk about like girls are like, oh, I want to go crazy party, whatever, but I don't let my husband or my boyfriend do it, and he has to pay for everything, and he does this and that. Like, well, that's a issue in your relationship.
I think it's leveraging on the relationship and each other's skill or the willingness and, like companionship, and just really understanding how much of that is a leverage, and then from what line does it become abusive. And what advice or thoughts would you like to share with women today?
Think about yourself. Think about what you want out of life. Because, our mothers and grandmothers weren't able to do that for themselves, whether it's for economic reasons or family reasons or tradition or whatever it was. And now there's so many opportunities for women that you really can take the reins of your own future. And it's really important to know who you are and to know what you want. Set boundaries, have limits, respect yourself and respect your limits. Take the time to care about yourself, your number one responsibility. If you're not okay, you can't help other people around you.
Thank you for joining. What are your thoughts on society and career for women? Until next time, bye-bye.